Welcome to my allotment diary again for the 4th week of June. As trailered last week, as well as the gardening work which I targeted to be done before going on holiday, I also plan to construct a new gate for the plot, with one rule being not to spend any money in its creation. The site had to be searched for suitable timber, not easy when the best material had already been used on constructing the dog kennel. Problems when using recycled timber are its unregularised nature. We are so used to timber from the yard being the same width and thickness. The action is keep to the basic setting out rules. An absolute must. Use face marks, face side to face side, mark left and right, and top and bottom. Poor quality of timber, especially if pallet timber is used, is timber is more stable and harder the closer it is sourced from the centre of a tree. Pallet timber is the rubbish that's normally discarded. Exceptions to this are pallets from equatorial countries, which use hardwood, and the action to take is keep your tools sharp and to a fine setting. And lastly, metal on or in the timber, and you need to use a metal detector, and when you find the metal, remove it. With unregularised material, traditional joints are best, which are mortise and tenons. Outside projects are subject to movement caused by humidity. In dry weather the timber shrinks, and in wet weather the timber expands. Again, it's important that when using the mortiser, that the face side of the timber goes to the fence in every case. Forming the tenons using the overarm saw is more protracted with unregularised timber, as the depth of cut has to be adjusted and tested for every member. Fortunately, the DeWalt has micro adjustment, which eases the problem. Otherwise, cutting by hand is the best solution, or a bandsaw could be used. What we are looking for are tenons that are push fit with hand pressure, and not that they are so slack they drop in. After a dry fit, a decision is required on how and what to fill the centre in with. As pallets, the material in this case had an already formed trench, which drew me into using vertical slats to fill the gate. Measuring this trench using calipers allowed a transfer of width to the table saw, giving an accurate width cut to the lats. 11 number lats were required. The actual making of the gate only took an afternoon, but this was protected by undercoating and glossing the inside of hard to reach surfaces for assembly, taking about 2 hours waiting for it to dry for each surface, which then totaled 12 hours. But I had other things to do, which I could do while the paint was drying, which was usually overnight. Prior to assembly, and when the paint was dry, I drilled each lat, top and bottom, for a pocket screw. What I failed to show was I cut all the laths to length by measuring on a lath against the mortise holes of one style, cutting it, and before moving it from the saw, set a stop on the overarm saw fence, cutting another 10 exactly the same length. To work out the spacing, I placed the 11 lats hard against one side, measured the distance remaining in metric, divided by 12, which came to 23 mm, made a spacer 22 mm wide, as experience has taught me one always gets creep, assembled the laths starting from both sides working in towards the centre, and the last lath, number 11, is then dead centre. The discrepancy in gaps with its adjacent lath, unless you know, is undetectable. Before you ask what happened to the hand pressure push fit, should have cut or measured the laths after painting. 3 coats times 4 services equals 12 layers of paint, so a bit of friendly persuasion was required. Actually, this persuasion scraped off the excess paint, making a good watertight joint, but that was luck rather than good management. It's getting warm out here, sun has shifted, need to move to a shadier position. That's better. Cramps are out, in position and screwed up till the pips squeak. All I require now are 8 wedges. It is important the wedges are exactly the same width as the tenons, so the marking gauge is scribed onto a piece of scrap wood and duly cut to size. Wedge shapes are drawn by eye on the scrap wood and then cut out. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The gate is checked for square using a long thin lath with a pointy end shoved into each diagonal corner and marked. These are the unique diagonals for this gate, about ½ an inch, which tells me the gate is at present about 1/4 inch out of square. You could say for an allotment gate insignificant, but it's easily adjusted by readjusting a cramp off to my left, tightening, splitting the difference, and it is now square. Now we drive in the wedges. Just position them first in every joint, drive them in with confidence, starting with all the outer wedges first, driving them home onto the next in a circular direction, clockwise or anti, and as long as you don't change direction, then finish with the inside wedges. You know when the wedge is driven sufficient, as the sound changes to a dull thud, and then you stop hammering. Broken wedges are a real pain to sort out, so just don't go there. An advantage is taken by the hot weather, as the timber, already dry, will have a moisture content that is very low, which means it can only from now on increase. An increase will have the effect of tightening the joints. If this had been in winter, I would have kept the timber before any work in the shed for at least a couple of weeks, and when assembled left it for a couple of days before wedging it up in a warm atmosphere. That's a bit simplistic, but I'm sure you get the idea. It's all about seasoning and moisture content. All that remains now is to complete the painting, but not before we fill the pocket holes with an external filler, which is activated by mixing in a catalyst. We can now have a hanging. The hinges and the bolt are all salvaged from around the site. I was fortunate in getting a pair, a bit small, but they'll do. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If I'd had different choice of materials, it would have been a differing pattern. But beggars can't be choosers, as they say. When you view this, I will have returned from holiday, and your comments will be viewed keenly. A thumbs up would be nice, and if not done so, please subscribe. Village Garden and Vegetable Show is the following weekend. What condition will the plot be after a week's absence? Will I have anything ready to enter? We shall see. Please take care, and with luck, I'll see you next week. But for now, bye!